The dates began to trouble me so much that I could no longer help but count them. Christian and I had been stealing away as much time together as we could for weeks, and my courses were late by almost a fortnight now. The faint sickness turning in my stomach since morning did little to persuade me it meant nothing at all. Thank God he insisted upon the chapel so quickly, for if my body proved as determined as the rest of him, I did not think another delay would have served either of us well. Still, I had scarcely a moment to dwell upon it with Cyril, forever shifting me towards another patch of light, or lifting the camera again as he caught nearly every stage of my dressing. He took another photograph as I raised my hands to the veil before the mirror, as though I were only just setting it in place. That should be enough for now, I think. I straightened myself again as Cyril came to a stop at the vanity, taking up his bag from the table beside it. For a moment, he seemed to think better of whatever came to mind, his eyes shifting towards the photograph of my parents set out for me. "My lady, might you care for one with your parents' portrait?" My eyes fell to my parents' photograph, and I knew I would grieve not having it for far longer than I ever might the moment of taking it. "I should like that, thank you," I said, coming nearer to take it up. His eyes moved about the room before settling on the tall window with its long lace curtains, softening the late afternoon light. "I think the photograph will show best there," he said, motioning towards it. "The darker tones shall stand out rather nicely against the light behind you." I crossed to the window and held the photograph against my chest as the thought came again that there might already be a child beginning between Christian and me. The timing of it all was almost cruel in its perfection. A wedding and a family restored, and yet the two people I most wished to stand within it would never know any part of what came after. "Like this?" I asked, turning a little towards him. A smile touched him then as he lifted the camera, the sort that told me he already believed himself rather clever for thinking of it. "Yes," he said, "just so." The flash followed a moment later, and when he lowered the camera, his fingers lingered against it as though another thought came to him, one he was not entirely certain ought to be spoken aloud. "Forgive me," he said, "but perhaps you might give them a kiss as well." I turned a little more towards the light, drawing the photograph nearer, as the memory of that last morning with my parents came over me with a sharpness that took my breath away. Not the dreadful part of it that followed afterward, but the beginning instead. All three of us meant to spend the day together as though there would always be another one waiting after it. Before I could lose hold of it again, I closed my eyes and pressed my lips to the photograph. When he lowered the camera again, there was a pleased sort of satisfaction about him that made me suspect he already considered it one of the better photographs he had ever taken. He set it carefully aside before drawing the strap of his bag back over his shoulder. "I am happy for you, Grace," he said then as he backed away. "Truly. To see the two of you so happy after all this time does my heart good." By the time he reached the door, some private thought seemed to amuse him enough to make him pause, turning back and smiling. "Do you know," he said, "I feel rather as though I have spent years reading a terribly sad book, only to find it decided at the last moment to end happily after all." He gave a small bow as he stepped back out into the vestibule beyond the room. "I shall see you in a few moments," he said, before pulling the door closed behind him. I set the photograph back upon the vanity and smiled at the likeness between us. Wearing my mother's dress and seeing her face reflected back at me within, it made her seem strangely near again, as though the years between us softened for just a little while. The sound of the door brought my eyes back to the mirror, where I found grandfather dressed as every proper English lord ought to be on such a day, dark coat laid perfectly over him, his cane in hand, every inch of him composed and immaculate. His attention moved first to the photo before returning to me. "You favour your mother strongly," he said as he came nearer, though when he reached me, the backs of his fingers brushed against the streak of white at my temple. Save for this bit of your father, of course. He reached into his coat and took out a folded square of blue cloth, his fingers lingering against it a moment before offering it across to me. This was found amongst your parents' wedding things in the attic, he said, and since tradition demands a bit of blue on your wedding day, I thought you might like to have it with you. A knock sounded at the door, gentle but insistent enough to remind us that the chapel was waiting, so grandfather offered me his arm. I regret you must settle for me today, he said. I do not feel I have settled, I said, looking up at him as he guided me towards the door. In fact, I think I must be the luckiest woman in all of England to have such a handsome gentleman upon my arm today. A soft laugh escaped him as he opened the door, and I gave a shrug as he let me through. 2 of them, actually. He closed the door behind us then and shifted my hand more securely upon his arm as we started down the corridor together. I confess I am relieved to see this day finally arrive, he said. I should be pleased to meet at least one of my great-grandchildren before my time is through. The words hit me hard enough that my heart stopped for a beat or two. For one absurd moment, I was certain it must be visible on my face somehow, that whatever my grandfather sensed would be the first thing Christian saw when he looked at me, and Christian had always been able to look at me rather thoroughly. I shall do my best, I said, just as the woman coordinating the wedding approached with my bouquet in hand, every bit as neat and efficient as a schoolmistress seeing tardy children to assembly. She slipped off ahead of us again to give word to the chapel, and grandfather took a moment to straighten his cuffs and settle his tie before moving his cane into his other hand. I am glad you and Christian found one another, he said. He is a very fine young man. The first notes of the organ began to carry through the chapel as the doors were drawn open before us. Christian stood, waiting beyond them all beneath the lights, in a dark coat and a quite fashionable vest, fitted to perfection, his attention already fixed upon me the moment he found me, as always. I realized suddenly how much of his life had been given over to me long before I had ever understood it. The searching, the waiting, the careful shaping of me for all this. Every sacrifice made quietly, every burden carried without complaint, all so Blackmere might endure, and I along with it. And through all of it, he had never stopped loving me. Indeed, I said, and together, grandfather and I stepped towards him.